Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to do an in-depth topic on micronutrients. We're going to talk about special considerations for female athletes. There are a number of factors that can affect micronutrient nutritional strategies for female athletes. Chief among them is the menstrual cycle, during which ovarian hormones change and alter various micronutrient requirements. Contraceptives and hormone replacement also can alter the needs for certain micronutrients, and pregnancy or menopause definitely changes the needs for certain micronutrients. So let's take a look at what's going on. During the menstrual cycle, there are changes in a number of different hormones. Here we're looking at in white, follicle stimulating hormone, in blue, estrogen or estradiol, in yellow, luteinizing hormone, and in green, this light green, progesterone. You can see that during the menstrual cycle, there are changes in these hormones, particularly estrogen or estradiol, and here progesterone. In the menstrual phase, there is a potential for lower energy metabolism, and this is probably a phase where an athlete will not want to be doing the hardest sets and the hardest workouts. During the follicular phase, estradiol is present. It's osteoprotective. That means it protects bones. It's anabolic, which means it helps place muscle mass on, and it increases the rate of fat metabolism. This is a really good time just prior to ovulation for athletes to work at their hardest. And then later in the luteal phase, progesterone production is increased, and gluconeogenesis changes the need for glucose. And in this phase, higher glucose needs are required than earlier in the menstrual cycle. Female athletes have another number of other important considerations. Athletes are encouraged to consume a minimum of 20% of calories from fats. This is to ensure that they're getting enough fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K. It goes so far as to say most athletes, both male and female, should consume at least 25% of their calories from fats. Carbohydrate intakes to get maximum performance are usually of the order of 7 to 10 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Again, this will need to be higher during the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. Consuming high carbohydrate snacks 3 to 4 hours can mitigate lower gluconeogenesis during the luteal phase. And it may be important to also have slightly higher hydration during this phase of the menstrual cycle. And protein requirements should exceed 1.5 grams per kilogram per day. So at least 1.6 grams per kilogram per day during the follicular phase, due to the higher rates of protein catabolism. This could be taken up to about 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, depending on the quality of the protein that's being consumed. Current USDA recommendations for iron that young women in the 14 to 18 years of age group have 15 milligrams of iron per day, and women from 19 to 50 years old have 18 milligrams per day. However, these levels are probably insufficient for most athletes. The US Armed Forces have done studies on female soldiers who are very active. This highly active group of women need to consume at least 22 milligrams of iron per day. So this would be the number that I would suggest for most female athletes, at least 22 milligrams of iron per day. Yeah, there are a number of special considerations for iron. The first phase of iron inadequacy will be iron deficiency, followed by iron deficient but not anemic, followed by anemia. These are three separate steps, three different phases, but loss of performance will be seen at each of these phases. So even if ferritin levels are just starting to decline, that's an indicator that the athlete needs to increase iron in their diet, or iron from other sources. Sometimes supplementation will be required. And that's because what we're looking at here is anemia, less red blood cells, less oxygen carrying capacity, and loss of exercise performance. Small athletes, particularly small women, are also at risk for low calcium and should consider consuming 1,500 milligrams of calcium per day to optimize bone health. If you cannot get that through dietary means alone, supplementing with calcium is an option. You should be aware that the gut can only absorb a maximum of 500 milligrams of calcium at a time. So taking 1 to 2 grams of calcium at a time is a waste of your hard-earned money. You should only be supplementing with 500 milligrams of calcium, but you need to divide that dose. 500 milligrams of calcium 3 times daily is the best way to ingest calcium. Vitamin D is absolutely essential. It is required to improve the absorption of this calcium. And the best way to get vitamin D is through your diet and also through exposure to sunlight. In fact, when the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the NCAA, has looked at female athletes, they've found up to 21% may have abnormal vitamin D levels in one study. In another study, it was found that 80% of female athletes and dancers have abnormal vitamin D levels. Dancers are a group of athletes that are at particular risk for low vitamin D and low bone density. Many female athletes will need to supplement their diets with vitamin D or get sun exposure. The approximate sun exposure that we're looking for here is 5 to 30 minutes of sun exposure between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So that's at least twice weekly on large sections of the skin, face, arms, hands, without sunscreen. That's what you need to get sufficient vitamin D. You can have your vitamin D levels measured, and if you are in deficient or inadequate category, it is important to either supplement with vitamin D and or get sunlight exposure. So let's summarize. What are some of the recommendations for female athletes? First of all, energy availability. It is essential that all female athletes get 45 kilocalories per kilogram of fat-free mass per day. Many athletes, male and female, do not get enough calories in their diet, and this is the number one reason for loss of performance. It's important to optimize nutrition based on phases of the menstrual cycle to increase protein and during ovulation or just prior to that, and then in the luteal phase to increase carbohydrate intakes. Micronutrient deficiencies are common in female athletes, particularly iron deficiencies or inadequacies, vitamin D deficiencies or inadequacies, and calcium deficiencies or inadequacies. Pursue nutritional food-first strategies first, but if these deficiencies persist or inadequacies persist, then supplementation is an option. You need to work with your doctor to make sure that you get that right and that you choose supplements that are safe and effective. Macronutrient requirements and hydration needs definitely change during the menstrual cycle. We've gone over that. Just pay attention to the various phases of the menstrual cycle in terms of training volume as well as nutrient intakes. Some other considerations: vegetarian athletes tend to have lower intakes of riboflavin, niacin, B12, zinc, and sodium. So they will need to focus, vegetarian and vegan athletes should focus on those micronutrients, whereas vegan and vegetarian athletes tend to get a lot of folate, vitamin C, and copper, which is a good thing. Vegan athletes definitely need to focus on calcium and vitamin B12. And you should be aware that vitamin and mineral intakes for athletes are definitely correlated with energy intakes, up to about 4,800 kilocalories per day, provided that your energy intakes matching your energy requirement. That is, that you're getting that 45 kilocalories per kilogram of fat-free mass per day. Then the athlete should be able to get all of the micronutrients they need from the food that they're eating without the need for supplements. Supplements may become necessary at even at higher workloads, over 5,000 or 4,800, 5,000 kilocalories per day. Then sometimes supplementation is required because the athlete just having a lot of difficulty getting the calories into their diet that they need. And there are athletes that will exceed 5,000 kilocalories per day when training at their peak.